Welcome to Obscura Science, where curiosity meets the unknown.
It doesn't look like much. Just a small, polished sphere of metal about the size of a grapefruit. It's surprisingly heavy for its size, nearly 15 pounds. And if you were to hold it in your hands, you'd feel a faint, steady warmth radiating from within. It seems inert, harmless, a scientific curiosity. But what if I told you that this simple metal ball was one of the most dangerous objects ever created by humankind? What if I told you that this sphere had a nickname, a name it earned in the most terrifying way possible? They called it the Demon Core. And this is the story of how it killed its creators. Our story begins in the secret city of Los Alamos, New Mexico. The year is 1945. World War II has just ended, but the work of the atomic age is just beginning. Here, in this isolated desert laboratory, the world's brightest minds were pushing the boundaries of physics. They were learning to control the very power of the stars. And at the heart of their research was a 6.2 kilogram sphere of pure plutonium. This core, it was designed to be the heart of a third atomic bomb, if one was ever needed. But for now, it was a priceless tool for research. The scientists needed to know exactly how much it would take to make it go critical. Critical is a calm word for a terrifying process. It's the moment a lump of radioactive material can sustain a nuclear chain reaction. The moment it becomes a tiny, man-made sun. To find that edge, they performed incredibly dangerous experiments. They called it tickling the dragon's tail. And the first man to get burned was a young physicist named Harry Daghlian. It was the night of August 21st, 1945. Daghlian was working late, and he was working alone. The lab was quiet. In front of him sat the plutonium core. His job was to build a wall around it, brick by brick. These weren't ordinary bricks. They were made of tungsten carbide, a material that reflects neutrons back into the core. With each brick he added, the core became more and more reactive. He was inching it closer and closer to that critical tipping point. He was carefully placing the final brick when it happened. His hand slipped. The heavy brick fell directly onto the plutonium sphere. In an instant, the room was filled with a brilliant, silent flash of blue light. A wave of intense heat washed over him. Daghlian knew immediately what had happened. He had pushed the dragon too far. He instinctively knocked the brick away and ran from the room. But it was too late. The damage was done. In that single, silent flash, the Demon Core had dealt him a lethal dose of radiation. His hand, the one that dropped the brick, began to tingle and swell. Soon, he was overcome with nausea. Over the next few weeks, his family could only watch as this brilliant young man was consumed from the inside out. His body was fighting a war it could not win. 25 days after he dropped that brick, Harry Daghlian was dead. You would think that after such a horrific accident, they would stop, that they would find a safer way. But the work had to continue. The dragon still needed to be tickled. And so the Demon Core was passed to another scientist, a man named Louis Slotin. Slotin was a top physicist at Los Alamos. He was the lab's leading expert on this kind of dangerous experiment. He was confident, maybe a little too confident. He had his own technique for finding the critical point. He would take 2 half-spheres of beryllium, another neutron reflector, and place one over the core. Then, he would lower the top half down, bringing the core closer and closer to criticality. And what did he use to keep the 2 halves from touching and triggering a disaster? A simple, flathead screwdriver. He would hold the top hemisphere with one hand, and with the other, he would pry the 2 halves apart with the tip of that screwdriver. It was a hands-on, risky procedure that made other scientists nervous, but Slotin was the expert. He had performed the experiment dozens of times without incident. On May 21, 1946, 9 months after the first accident, Slotin was demonstrating the procedure to 7 other colleagues. The room was quiet, all eyes fixed on his hands, on the core, on that single, humble screwdriver holding back a nuclear chain reaction. And then it happened. The screwdriver slipped. The beryllium hemisphere dropped. For a fraction of a second, the demon core was fully enclosed. It went supercritical. Once again, the room was bathed in an intense, otherworldly blue light. A wave of heat blasted through the air. But this time, Louis Slotin didn't run. He reacted. With a motion born of pure instinct, he tore the top hemisphere off the core with his bare hand, breaking the chain reaction. He had saved the lives of every other person in that room. But he knew, instantly, that he had just signed his own death warrant. The metallic taste of radiation filled his mouth. He turned to his colleagues, his face pale. "Well," he said calmly, "that does it." He told everyone to stay exactly where they were. He took a piece of chalk and drew a sketch of their positions on the floor, so they could calculate the exact dose of radiation each person had received. He was a scientist to the very end. He was rushed to the hospital, but everyone knew it was hopeless. He had absorbed a massive, unsurvivable dose of radiation. His decline was even faster and more horrific than Harry Daghlian's. His body blistered. He suffered from what was described as a 3-dimensional sunburn, burning him from the inside and the outside. He became delirious, his body completely breaking down. 9 days after the screwdriver slipped, Louis Slotin was dead. 2 men, 2 fatal accidents, 1 single sphere of plutonium. After Slotin's death, no one dared to touch it again. The hands-on criticality experiments were stopped for good. The core was now infamous. It was officially nicknamed the Demon Core. It was seen as cursed, a malevolent object that had taken 2 of its masters. Its life as a laboratory instrument was over. Its final purpose was the one it was originally built for. Just over a month later, the Demon Core was placed inside a bomb. It was detonated high above the Pacific Ocean during the Operation Crossroads nuclear tests. In a final, terrible flash of light, the small, warm sphere that had taken 2 brilliant lives was vaporized, ending its deadly reign in a mushroom cloud. The story of the Demon Core is a chilling reminder of the price of progress. It shows us how a simple slip of the hand, a moment of lost focus, can unleash the most destructive forces in the universe. It makes you wonder about the fine line between discovery and disaster, and the courage of those who dare to walk it.
You've been watching Obscura Science. Subscribe now for more weird experiments and unsolved mysteries. Join our journey into the unknown.